This little girl is one of poverty's children. Our purpose in this report series is to acquaint you with her, not to call for social reform or more money, but just for a better understanding. Poverty's child may be 3 or 83. They may live in New York, Chicago, or Meadowood Acres, a budding community of struggling folks 10 miles west of San Antonio, where $10 million airplanes pass over $40 houses to land at Kelly Air Force Base. 240 people make their home here and live on an economy ranging from low middle income to near starvation. The houses are as individual as those in Alamo Heights or Castle Hills, as individual as the men who built them with their bare hands and sweat. The residents of Meadowood are poor, but they have a treasury of fierce pride and just plain guts, qualities that millions in America have lost. The families here have little, but they do have the joy of their own half-acre of earth and plenty of fresh air. The seeds of self-government have been planted here, and they're beginning to grow, for in Meadowood the families have put their own roof over their own heads and now meet to discuss community problems: water, health, education, and garbage disposal. This 5-part series will do no more than to show you, the television viewer, what it is like to be poor, to live in one of the hundreds of Meadowoods in South Texas, what it is like to be poverty's child. Next, we'll look at one of the biggest problems facing the rural poor: water. What a man does when he can't afford to just step to the faucet and get it. Pure water is not often a problem when a man lives in the city or even in a small town. But when a man takes his family from a city slum to a rural community, he may have to exchange running water for the freedom of having his own little plot of land. The folks in Meadowood are more fortunate than many others, in that Aaron Mandel, who subdivided the land, provided a pure, deep well. Families may take all the water they need from it at a cost of $1 per month. Their problem is getting it home and putting it to work for them. In Loma Vista, another community like Meadowood, the residents pay 7 cents a gallon to have water trucked to their doorstep, where it is stored in equally unsanitary conditions. You and I get 37 gallons of water for only 1 penny. Mr. and Mrs. Casanova raised 16 children, have 45 grandchildren, and 40 great-great-grandchildren. In Meadowood or anywhere else, water is health. And though the families may be poor and the children unwilling, the ritual of the daily bath goes on. If you are lucky enough to have electricity, life is a little easier, but still difficult. Life is always difficult for the poor. Tomorrow, the economy of Meadowood. How little money can a family really live on, and why? As long as there are people living in abject poverty, the wages of unskilled and semi-skilled laborers and middle-income families will be affected. For when a man comes looking for a job with a 4th-grade education, a functional knowledge of English, and 2 willing hands, his best qualification is that he will work cheap. The men of Meadowood Acres are good with their hands. 20 of them have permanent jobs. 3 of those men work for $45 a week. They each have 9 children. Another man makes only $32 a week, but he only has 7 children. I met a woman Sunday who was the homemaker for a migrant worker and 14 children. They came home from the fields of Michigan and Indiana broke. They are literally living on nothing. She is hoping that her children may soon be able to help. They'll drop out of school at 14 and into the same rut as their parents. Some of the older folks in Meadowwood live on small pensions. The Romeros are the entire membership of the Meadowwood Chamber of Commerce. The shelves of their small store are sprinkled with basic necessities. They provide a needed service, sell lots of beans and soda pop, and scratch out a living. Basically, man is not ignorant, but he can only do with what he knows. There are more jobs available in America today than ever before, but a man must know more to get one. Tomorrow, education at the grassroots. Poverty's child is born on the same treadmill of ignorance that his family has walked for generations. His only chance to get off is to stay in school long enough to acquire more education than his parents did. The people in Meadowwood Acres realize this, and 3 days a week, a makeshift nursery school is formed. Preschoolers and their mothers troop to class. The lesson to be learned by young and old alike is a working knowledge of the English language, the official tongue of these United States. Sister Florence has worked with these kids for only 3 months. Once they spoke no English. Now they can count to 10 and are learning their ABCs. With luck, they will enter first grade with a better understanding of school than my children because of these classes. And they'll compete with economically average children from the first day of school because they know English. And so, another barrier is assaulted. Across the room, parents cope with the same problem. Learn English. Mrs. John Harrison is the wife of an Air Force captain. She finds untold happiness in the eyes of her students. It makes her volunteer hours worthwhile. It is a feeling that only a true teacher knows.
Very good. And what's this word? A school.
School's over. The students return to the chores of everyday life in Meadowwood, knowing that the lesson learned today has cut another chip in the solid wall of illiteracy that surrounds poverty's child. Tomorrow, help from the outside, the outstretched hands that meet in Meadowwood. Jack Long's ancestors clawed their way through the ghettos of New York and Chicago when signs read, "Irish and dogs not allowed," to become the Irish cop on the corner and the neighborhood dressmaker. Yours may have fought their way across this land in a covered wagon, but they made the long climb to first-class citizenship. The families in Meadowwood Acres and millions like them found no such heritage willed to them. They are products of a struggling generation that failed economically. They are indeed poverty's children. They were discovered by social workers who offered their hard-pressed resources. Now, Mrs. Armas, a professional social worker, visits the families 3 times a week. The Good Sisters of the Sacred Heart conduct Sunday classes for adults and children. 9 nuns visit the families in their homes. They are able to help with practical solutions to the everyday problems of life. And they make the Sunday afternoon brighter just by being there. The order has hopes for expanding their work in Meadowwood to include group instruction this summer. VISTA volunteers have been asked to live and work with the families in Meadowwood and other such communities around San Antonio. These domestic Peace Corps workers will move into one of the vacant houses as soon as possible, hopefully by early summer. Vista planners from Washington surveyed the area last week. The volunteers will live with these poor, work with them for at least a year to help them help themselves. I gained much while compiling this series on poverty, won some new friends, but most importantly, learned that the war on poverty could become just another so-called government handout if you and I do not become an active part of that fight. A skilled hand on a hammer, a practical solution to primitive problems such as pure water, an hour spent flashing cards are the weapons we can use. I saw Mrs. Harrison, who was a Kentucky school teacher before her husband was stationed at Lackland, enjoy the fruits of her efforts with San Antonio's poor. I saw the bright light of understanding when Pete Castillo explained how water can be made to work for man, and learned that if we want abject poverty and the social and medical disasters it breeds abolished in America, we must do more than just sign the check. Jack Long, WOAI Television News.